Hello, this is Peter Woolfolk, producer and host of the Public Relations Review podcast. When I conceived this program, my idea was to provide public relations practitioners with a wide variety of solid, useful information and guidance from public relations professionals across America. And we are doing that. I will continue to cover important topics such as crisis communications and artificial intelligence and other such important topics. But I will also address other issues such as diversity in public relations, marketing to women, public relations trends, various data concerns, and much more. From time to time, I will also invite vendors of public relations products on to help you better understand how these products can improve your efficiency and your effectiveness. You will learn a lot from our podcast, so thank you for listening, and please inform your colleagues about the Public Relations Review podcast and continue listening. Thank you so very much.
Welcome. This is the Public Relations Review podcast, a program to discuss the many facets of public relations with seasoned professionals, educators, authors, and others. Now, here is your host, Peter Woolfolk.
Welcome to the Public Relations Review, and as always, thank you to our listeners across America and around the world. Now, somewhere along the way, many of us have been invited to restaurant openings, wine tastings, special elegant dinners, and other related events. Now, these and other such platinum occasions are designed and promoted by today's guest, Jamie Estes, who is joining us today from Louisville, Kentucky. Now, Jamie is president of Estes Public Relations with offices in Louisville, Charleston, South Carolina, and Chicago, and with clients in more than 14 markets. Estes Public Relations is an established name in culinary, beverage, hospitality, and lifestyle public relations. And along the way, Jamie has managed more than 50 chef appearances at James Beard Foundation events and more than 15 James Beard winners, finalists, and semifinalists. Now, she has also opened 90 restaurants and launched dozens of products nationally. Prior to opening her own firm, Jamie created and managed FSA Public Relations for 10 years, which included working with renowned chefs Emeril Lagasse, Julia Childs, and Jacques Pepin, as well as the Peabody Hotel in Memphis, Magnolia's in Charleston, South Carolina, and the Cordoba Mexican chain. Oh, by the way, Jamie has earned certification by the Count of Master Sommelier. So, Jamie, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peter. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Well, look, let's get started let me ask you, how did you get started in this particular, the culinary beverage section of public relations?
Sure. I was working for the city of Louisville in tourism PR, and I met two gentlemen who were managing professional associations, just like you and I might join PRSA, Public Relations Society of America. These gentlemen ran 8 international food and beverage associations, including the Julia Child Cookbook Awards and American Institute for Wine and Food. They decided they wanted to kind of have a PR company in addition, and so they brought me in to start that for them and for 10 years. And that was right when American cuisine was really sort of taking off. And, of course, I'm a 20-something. I had no idea, kind of what was going on when I first got into it. I was like, this is great. I get to eat and drink and work with these fantastic chefs and restaurants, but I had no idea the significance of what was going on in the United States as it, relates to American cuisine really being taken seriously, as a cuisine.
Mm-hmm. Well, once you got into that, how did you manage to, let's say, get involved with the restaurants and decide how to best promote them, particularly when they're about to open or launch a new restaurant?
Well, I think a restaurant opening and launching a product, it's like any new thing. You look at what's needed, you look at the timing, and if you have your basic principles of media deadlines, who covers it, how can you tie it into current events? I mean, it's kind of a plan that we use. And so, again, attracting restaurants, that was at a time where restaurant PR was fairly new. Restaurants knew that they needed help, but it was more about national recognition than butts in seats as it is today. I mean, there's been a real shift since 2009 on when clients hire us, and back then they wanted national recognition. They're in, secondary cities like Louisville or Cincinnati or even Charleston back then. They wanted, a national presence, and so they would hire us to help them achieve that.
It's interesting that you said that. As I said, I'm from Washington, D.C. Now, one of the top-notch restaurants, at least I'm not sure how far their fame goes, is outside of Washington. Probably takes you 45 minutes or so to get there. I think it's called the Inn at Little Washington.
It is. Patrick O'Connell, yes. Fabulous place.
Been down there, and probably at best, I don't know, holds 75, 80, maybe 100 and some odd people or something. But you have to schedule months in advance to be able to get in.
Yes, he along with, like, in your area, Marcel Desaulniers, who is in Williamsburg, and then my client, Bob Kincaid. I don't know if you've ever dined at Kincaid's in D.C., but those are three of the pioneers that kind of helped in the beginning in the 80s getting this, American cuisine kind of, becoming a national, respected internationally. Prior to that, in the 70s, it was French cuisine, and then we realized our chefs, are on the same level as, the chefs of France. So I think all that was starting in the 80s.
Then how do you help them make the decision between, let's say, maybe hiring an advertising agency versus a PR firm to raise their visibility?
I think I use the analogy, you're reading, your daily newspaper and you see an article on a new restaurant versus an ad on a restaurant. Which makes you want to go eat the food, and again, it goes back to third-party endorsements, or we call it earned media. I mean, in our industry, we say that earned media, is anywhere between 4 to 5 times more valuable, than advertising. I think it all works together, and I tell my clients that PR should be one part of your integrated marketing strategy. I'm not against advertising at all, but most of my clients are small, and they don't have the, massive budgets to put behind advertising to make an impact. I mean, there's a lot of noise out there between, look at your inbox, all the newsletters that you're getting, all the media, all the opportunities, everything you're reading online. There's a lot of information coming to us, and I do think earned media is something that stands out a little bit more. And again, it's all integrated, but that's kind of one of the things that I sell, because that question I get asked a lot. Well, I'm thinking about putting my money in advertising instead of PR. Why should we do PR? And again, it's that third-party endorsement. Someone else is telling you, telling the consumer that you're great. You're not doing it with paid advertising.
Well, I certainly support that idea, because that is actually one of the ways that I make decisions about what does someone else who's not connected to the organization have to say about what it is you are doing or what it is you have.
Yes, I mean, when you're looking at buying a car, if you see, Consumer Reports doing a review on the new, sport utility, how safe it is, how, economical it is, versus an ad that the dealership puts out, which is going to drive you more to buy that car.
Well, I guess it's similar to most of us when we're buying something online. We want to go to the reviews first. I want to see what those reviews say.
Right. And I think our next generation of consumers, especially, they're very much into research. Online makes it, there's so much out there now. They can look up endorsements and reviews and articles about what they want to do versus, just flipping through ads.
Well, now you've also launched a wide range of products and different brands. How do you go about launching those? What strategies do you use to launch some of these products?
Well, we look at who is the user, who is going to be going to the restaurant or purchasing the product or drinking the spirit, and we start with that, because then from there we go into, well, okay, what outlets does our target demographic read or watch And so that's kind of a strategy for doing it. We try to also tie in with current events. I mean, media, they're always covering, there's certain things media always has to cover, Thanksgiving, they're always doing grilling in the summer. So we look for opportunities with our clients to kind of marry with the needs of the media. Mm-hmm. In 2009, I think that was when the really big shift that I saw our industry changed. More than 100 magazines closed. I mean, I was actually in the offices of Gourmet Magazine in New York the day that they closed their doors. And Southern Accents, Cottage Living, just numerous publications closed. I mean, I was on the phone also with the editor of Delta Sky magazine. I called him up to pitch him on something. He's like, "This is my last day." He'd been there for 15 years. So what we're seeing is all these publications are closing, and then what's left is the staff is trying to cover, the same material with, a third of the staff. You're seeing it in newspapers. Newspapers, they're gutting them. They're hubbing now. So one person may be writing for 10 different newspapers. And so I think, PR has become more valuable in a certain way that the editors, if they can find a source they trust, they're going to come to us. And we're a one-stop shop. I mean, you can come to us and, get 3 to 5 stories because we're in so many different cities. But I think that's one big change I've seen, and but you have to keep up with who is doing what, and because there's so many freelancers now, that's the other big change. You really have to keep on top of who's covering what, because the worst thing that can happen is pitch someone and they don't write about your client. I mean, so you want to know what you're pitching. You want to know this person covers spirits.
Right.
This person likes bourbon. They don't like vodka. Well, you don't want to pitch them on vodka. Or this TV show, producer, they don't cover cocktails at all, so don't worry about pitching them on cocktails, And so I think it makes the PR professional have to do more homework, but that's a good thing.
Just as an aside, I just happened to, a couple of years ago, I was flying Southwest, and that magazine they had a piece in there about Charleston, South Carolina, and I read about one of the restaurants in there that had a combination of a coconut martini and coconut cake. That actually made me take a weekend trip to Charleston, because they have got some spectacularly good restaurants, and I think one of them is Magnolia's, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, Magnolia's. I worked with them many years ago. There's some fantastic restaurants in Charleston. I'd like to know the one you're talking about, though, because I love coconut, and we have an office there, so I'm down there about once a month.
I think the coconut martini and cake was a hotel. Is it one of the plantations or something like that, not too far from Little Market Street or whatever?
Oh, yeah, okay. Charleston Place, probably.
Right. That was it.
They do have a fabulous coconut cake there. Yes. So, yeah, that's not too far from my office. So.
Okay. Look, one of the other things you briefly touched on was adult beverages. Talk a bit about that, because we are beginning to see a bit more in terms of exposure of adult beverages, particularly on television.
It's a really exciting time to be in the beverage industry, because I think the consumers are more curious, they're more sophisticated, they're more well-traveled, so they're more open, I think, to trying different things. If you think about, 20 years ago, you probably had wine, you might have had a cocktail before dinner, but you never had cocktails with dinner. I mean, that was kind of, why would you do that? But now, distilleries have discovered that certain foods go really well with certain spirits. I mean, I've had a client that they did a flavor wheel where they discovered that Parmesan cheese went really well with their bourbon, or this type of chocolate went well with bourbon. Chocolate and bourbon, that's a great pairing. Just like I like red wine and chocolate together. But people now are drinking cocktails throughout their meal or their event, not just as a starter. And they're being more curious. I mean, they're trusting bartenders, and bartenders to me now are like chefs. I mean, they're experimenting with ingredients in the kitchen. They're making their own bitters. They're making their own syrups and shrubs. I mean, it's just a fun and exciting time to be in the spirits industry.
The other thing I've also noticed too is that now, particularly the spirits, that they have more women in them as compared to just it being a male drink.
Yes, and I think we work with several females in the industry, but I've also seen a big shift in companies realizing that females do consume spirits, and specifically bourbon. I've worked with distilleries for a long, long time, and again, 15 years, even 15 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, it was like, well, yeah, women drink spirits, but they don't drink a lot of spirits. Men are still, our primary focus. That has totally changed. Women now drink spirits. They may only drink spirits. I mean, I've been a bourbon girl since I was of legal age, but I think the companies are recognizing that women consumers do like spirits, and they are marketing to them as well. There's an organization called Bourbon Women, started by a woman named Peggy Stevens. I was fortunate enough to be on her board, and now we work with her, helping her with PR. But I mean, that was 7 years ago. But she realized, and she came from Woodford Reserve. She realized that women liked bourbon, and she started this organization. I think there's like 9 chapters now throughout the country. There's one even in Canada, and so these women get together and kind of celebrate. Bourbon is educational, it's networking, and it's growing nationally.
Mm-hmm. Sort of getting back to restaurants, one of I'm not sure whether we'll have listeners who either have a restaurant or intend to open a restaurant, but what sort of tips, if you will, would you give them for beginning to open or launch their restaurant to gain some exposure?
Sure. I think the first thing would be, to start as far out as possible. I mean, 6 months out, you're opening that restaurant. Let your local media know about it. I mean, even if just we're talking local level, you're not worried about national, you just want to let your local community know. Reach out to your local media. Let them know what you're doing. I mean, also, you're going to get some pre-coverage that way. And then a month out, when your opening day, a lot of restaurants don't know their opening date and literally until the week they're opening. Sometimes the day they're opening. I mean, I've been in restaurants before, we're opening that night and they're still scaffolding up. So, but keep the media apprised. Now with social media, you can do that much, it's much easier to keep the media informed about what you're doing by posting photos online. Let your neighborhoods and your community see the progress. If you get some really cool chairs in, take a photo of it, put it up there, build the excitement. And with social media, that's a really easy, affordable way to do it. Just start putting really cool things. You get, you're working on your menu, and you see you're going to have these great, you're going to have a great piece of fish. Well, take a photo of the fish. I mean, just kind of get the group excited, and then do your research. You probably know who's covering what, but just make sure that you do your local affiliates have cooking shows. Some do, some don't. Make sure you know who the food editors are. Make sure you know who the bloggers are, who the restaurant critics are. And so again, keeping them informed, knowing who that is. That may sound simple, but I have reporter friends who'll say, yeah, I got a notice about a restaurant, and I'm not even covering food. So time is limited, your resources are limited. Make sure you know who you're covering, and keep them appraised. Invite them to a soft opening. Invite them in to try it, because that's the best way. That's the best way to market what you're doing, is to get people to try your food. If you've got a good food product, a good restaurant, a good beverage, getting people to try it, that is the number one thing to do. And go out there the first year, build in tasting events. It's great to give back to the community, but build in, in your marketing budget, build in time and resources to go out there and let people try your food. At the same time, it's helping, raise funds for your favorite charities. It's a win-win.
So these are some outstanding ideas, and I think, as I listen to you, maybe you should also give some additional tips to those who might be or have a restaurant already, what they should look for if they want to hire a PR firm to help promote their restaurant or beverage.
Sure. Well, I think the number one thing, if a PR firm tells you, I guarantee you something, then walk away, because there's no guarantees. It's close. I mean, I've built my company on relationships, and we have great relationships with the media, but I would never, ever promise an article ever, because you just can't control it. I mean, and I think that's one kind of red flag to look out for. But check their references. Look at what they're doing. Ask for samples of their work. We're very transparent in what we do. Or we have a sampling of our clients online. We put examples of our work online. We put examples of our work on our social media. So, do some due diligence there, and, ask questions like, ask them how they would do it. I mean, PR firms are not going to give you a plan before they hire you, but, ask ideas. What would you do about this situation? And again, check references.
Well, Jamie, you have provided us a lot of information in a short period of time. So do you have any sort of closing remarks you would like to impart to the listeners?
I think, again, just, read the outlets, watch TV, make sure you put things on social media. Again, that's a very effective form of marketing, and social media should be included with your PR plan. I don't think one can stand alone without the other, but together, I don't think, I think it's dynamite. I think, having a social media plan weaved in with your PR is the best way to go.
Well, Jamie, thank you so very much. My guest today has been Jamie Estes, president of Estes Public Relations. And once again, Jamie, thank you so very, very much for joining us. And to our listeners, please share this information with your colleagues. And don't forget to listen to the very next edition of the Public Relations Review.
This podcast is produced by Communication Strategies, an award-winning public relations and public affairs firm headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us.